I recorded my wife and mother-in-law speaking in their native language, hoping to understand their private jokes. What I uncovered instead was a terrifying truth that shattered my world and exposed a betrayal beyond my darkest nightmares. Just 2 months before, I was a newlywed, filled with hope and the promise of forever. My wife and I came from completely different cultures, and while I adored her, there were things we had to navigate. One big one was the idea of living with her parents. In her culture it was normal. For me, an American raised to value independence and privacy, I'd moved out at 19 with my parents' full support. The thought made me deeply uncomfortable. We talked about it and she made it sound like her parents already lived with her, that she grew up in that very apartment. I respected our cultural differences, but I drew a firm line. No way was I sacrificing our privacy. Not like that. We eventually reached a compromise though. She asked me to try it for a few months and if I hated it we'd move out. I agreed. I was in love and willing to try. Our wedding was small but beautiful, a testament to our love. I moved into her apartment and at first, everything felt sweet. Her family was incredibly welcoming. But then, there were the conversations. My wife and mother-in-law would frequently slip into their native language. Their voice is a melodic mystery to me. I'd ask her to teach me, wanting so badly to be part of their world, to understand their jokes and their whispered secrets. But she always refused. "It's not necessary," she'd say, brushing me off. My heart ached a little each time. I even took a few online classes, but I was just a beginner, catching only a few scattered words and phrases. About a month and a half into our marriage, a cold dread started to settle in. My mother-in-law's voice grew more insistent, and one phrase became disturbingly familiar. "Get it done." She'd tell my wife this again and again. Whenever I looked up, they'd exchange a quick glance, and my wife would offer a strained, awkward smile. My gut screamed that something was wrong. I confronted her gently at first, but she'd just blow me off, promising to tell me later. Later never came. The anxiety in the apartment grew palpable, especially from my mother-in-law. Even our honeymoon plans were constantly derailed. I wanted to go abroad, but she'd refuse outright, citing work or some other flimsy excuse. I was fed up. This wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined. One day at work I was chatting with a coworker. She was from the same country as my wife, but I'd never heard her speak the language. On a whim I asked her if she knew it. She did. My heart pounded. I asked if she could translate a few lines for me, and she readily agreed. I knew what I was about to do felt wrong, like a betrayal in itself, but I was desperate. I felt so left out, so gaslit. I needed to know. I absolutely needed to know. By the way, if you're still with me on this unbelievable journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Trust me, more stories like this are always coming. That evening I went home. I went through my usual routine, pretending everything was fine. When my wife walked in, her mother immediately launched into a fierce, angry tirade in their language. This was it. My hands trembled as I discreetly hit record. The next day during my break, I played the recording for my coworker. Her eyes wide with shock fixed on me. She asked who was speaking. When I told her it was my wife and mother-in-law, her face went white. "Get out of there immediately," she whispered. "And call the cops." My world tilted. The cops? It couldn't be that bad, could it? I pleaded with her, asked if she'd misunderstood. "No," she said, her voice grim. Then she explained. My mother-in-law was pressuring my wife to open a joint account with me, to keep meticulous notes on my finances. My jaw dropped. The sweet, reserved woman I thought she was? A calculating predator. Then came the real gut punch. My mother-in-law was relentlessly pushing my wife to apply for a green card. My wife, almost yelling back, was explaining that she needed proof I could financially support her. The exact phrase my mother-in-law kept screaming? "Get it done." It was all crashing down. I remembered refusing a joint account, thankful now that my investments were safe and undisclosed. But the green card? She told me she grew up here, that her parents lived with her. It was all a lie. A cold wave of realization washed over me, and that's when I felt my coworker pull me into a hug. I hadn't even realized I was crying. She urged me to report everything to the police and file for an annulment, not a divorce. This wasn't a broken marriage, it was fraud. Then she told me one more detail, something my wife had said on the recording. Her exact words were a dagger to my heart. "Why do you think I married him? Have you seen his house? It's huge. He doesn't know I don't have a green card. I'll have to coax him into believing my story. We're married now, but we need to wait to make our move." The audacity. To say such things right in front of me, in the supposed safety of their secret language. Thank God I had proof. I went home early that day, packed my bags in a daze. My father was already on his way. My mother-in-law wasn't there, but my father-in-law tried to stop me as I wheeled my luggage out. I ignored him. My own father arrived, enraged but holding it together for my sake. I left with him, my entire life turned upside down in a single afternoon. We contacted his lawyer, and a report was filed that very same day. My wife called me relentlessly that evening, but my lawyer advised me not to answer. This was beyond personal betrayal. This was a criminal act. 6 months later, the annulment was granted. I saw her face in court, that moment of dawning realization that I knew everything, and it was a mix of shock and pure rage. I'd actually believed she loved me. I wanted to ask her why, if any of it was real, but the answers were all in that recording played back in my shattered mind. My lawyer kept me from contacting her, and it was for the best. My parents saw how broken I was. I kept thinking if I hadn't recorded them, I would have never known. I would have lived a lie, building a life with someone whose intentions were purely malicious. I never shared the specific language or country, refusing to let this perpetuate stereotypes. But charges were pressed and she paid the price. There are details I still can't make public, but I can tell you she didn't get away with it. Her parents, who were only here on a visitor's visa, faced potential deportation. I stayed with my parents, the world feeling too dangerous to trust anyone. I owed everything to my coworker. Without her, I would still be unknowingly trapped. That thought still sends a shiver down my spine. 1 year later, the legal proceedings finally wrapped up, and it was even more sickening than I'd imagined. The investigation uncovered that my ex-wife wasn't just a one-off schemer. She'd attempted this before in another state, getting away with it because the previous victim was too afraid to pursue legal action. My father's incredible lawyer unearthed a shocking network, a full-blown family business of marriage fraud, specifically targeting financially stable Americans with minimal family involvement. The most chilling discovery? Detailed notes about me meticulously compiled before we even met. She'd researched my family, my career, my daily routines. Screenshots of my social media posts going back years were annotated with observations about my financial status and personality traits, all ripe for exploitation. I had been methodically, coldly chosen as a target. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were deported. My ex-wife faced criminal charges and would likely be deported after serving her sentence. They found evidence linking them to at least 5 other fraudulent marriages across 3 states. But a silver lining emerged, if you can call it that. My story, picked up by local news with names changed, led 3 other victims to come forward. The authorities were now investigating what they believed was a larger organized crime ring. I spent 8 months in therapy, trying to heal the gaping wound of trust this experience left. It was hard to fathom how someone could pretend to love you while meticulously planning to exploit you. I'm making progress, my therapist says, but I still second-guess everyone's motives. My coworker, my accidental savior, became one of my closest friends. She even introduced me to a support group. My parents were my rock and we grew closer than ever. Dad still blamed himself, but I kept reminding him none of us could have known. Financially, I was okay thanks to never creating that joint account and the swift annulment. The court even ordered restitution, though I'm not holding my breath. I'm slowly dating again, but now I trust my gut implicitly and ask the difficult questions early on. I even started language classes again, this time for myself, and it's become a genuine passion. To everyone who supported me back then, thank you. Your words made me feel less alone. Now, 2 years later, life truly has a way of coming full circle. Yesterday, I testified at the final trial. My ex-wife was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, followed by immediate deportation. The investigation, which started with my case, dismantled an operation spanning 5 states and involving over 20 fraudulent marriages. The prosecutor revealed a chilling detail. My ex-wife had been doing this since she was 18. I wasn't her second victim. I was her 4th. She'd gotten better, more convincing each time. But this update isn't about her anymore. It's about healing. My coworker, the one who translated that fateful recording, is now running a support organization for victims of marriage fraud. I volunteer there on weekends, turning my pain into purpose. Last month, I spoke at an immigration fraud awareness conference. It was terrifying, but the response was overwhelming. We're working on creating a nationwide support network. My parents have become advocates too. Dad, especially, has found his second calling, organizing workshops with local law enforcement. Therapy paid off. I'm dating someone wonderful now, someone who respects my past and my need for transparency. She's patient with my occasional doubts and even encouraged me to keep speaking out. For the first time in years, I'm excited about the future. I've moved back into my own place, stronger and more connected to my family than ever. The language classes? I'm now fluent in Spanish and learning Mandarin, considering becoming a certified translator. Sometimes I still think about that recording. One desperate decision to understand what was happening around me changed everything. My lawyer still uses my case in her seminars. She says my story helped change how law enforcement approaches marriage fraud. To this community, to all of you who supported me, thank you. Your words gave me strength. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even sad. I found purpose in this pain. using my experience to help others avoid or escape similar situations. Life isn't perfect, but it's good. Really good. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I don't know about that, but I do know that what hurts you can help you help others. And sometimes that's enough to make the hurt worth it. This is definitely my last update. Not because the story is over, but because it's time to start a new one. Have any of you ever had a situation where your gut told you something was wrong, and you decided to dig deeper, even when it felt uncomfortable? What did you find out? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below.